Huntsville itself is a jewel in the Canadian Shield, an ideal location for this gathering of world leaders. Tony made a very persuasive case for this location. He argued our international guests would be charmed by the uniquely Canadian beauty of the region and by the warm hospitality of Muskokans. Now, I'm sure Tony and his constituents are not unaware of the benefits of hosting the summit. The international media will introduce Huntsville and the Muskokas to millions of potential tourists around the world. Moreover, judging from the results of the 2002 summit in Kananaska, Alberta, we would anticipate that the total provincial regional economic benefit will likely exceed the nearly $300 million that was generated for the summit in Alberta.
Incredible, frankly, for Huntsville. I mean, this is what we have dedicated our economic development thrust towards, is events tourism. I don't think it gets any bigger than the G8 summit for events tourism.
The enormity of which I guess really won't sink in for a few days. And when we can sit down with some folks and say, okay, what is it that we really are going to expect in Muskoka in 2010?
That our Conservative government has created a new fund in the budget dedicated to G8 projects. This fund will provide our communities with up to $50 million for new investments in roads, runways, and buildings throughout the region so that we are fully prepared to host the G8.
I think I did the math, and we're spending somewhere around $650,000 a week for the next year on capital projects. So that brings it home for folks, understanding the amount of the quantity of things we're doing.
The G8 is the largest annual global security event.
Look at that. There we go. There we go. We are officially now 1 year away from the start of the 2010 G8 Summit. As you may be aware, this morning the Prime Minister confirmed that not only is the G8 coming to Muskoka, but we will also be hosting the G20 nations in Muskoka as well. In terms of incremental costs associated with the G20, I'm sure one of the factors associated with holding the G20 in Muskoka is that we're already preparing for a G8, which, in fact was closer to a G12 or a G14 in any event. So the incremental costs should be bearable and do not at this time mean a whole new budget for a G20. In fact, I would argue against that. I think we want to be careful with taxpayer money. We have been careful with taxpayer money, and so one of the advantages to doing this in Muskoka is, in fact, that you, as Claude said, you can use what was being prepared for the G8 for also the G20 at very little extra cost.
I can't for a moment imagine how they would, knowing what security planning has gone on with us here in Huntsville for the 8, how they could, virtually do the same thing, for wherever else the G20 might be almost concurrently, I think would be really difficult. So I think the better place for it's right here.
The G20 summit will not be held in Muskoka. Prime Minister Stephen Harper confirmed the rumor that had been going around for weeks that Toronto will in fact host the G20 June 26th and 27th.
Well, it's hard not to have a twinge. When at one point we were holding, we had the whole enchilada, and now we have part of it. But it is still a good news story for Huntsville.
What this does is puts right in the heart of this community a place of higher learning. It gives us a window into two very important industries, the healthcare industry and the environment.
So we've been working in that range of the low $8 million range for our debt when all things are said and done. The net increase that will hit taxpayers will be about a 2.54% increase. And if your house is assessed at $100,000, that's 74 cents a month. And the average house is probably assessed around $200,000, which would mean it would sell for maybe $250 or something like that, maybe more. And so that would be $1.50 a month. A cup of coffee a month gives you all of this infrastructure. And I think that's really good news for our community.
So ladies and gentlemen, your new center, come on in.
It's It's like, you're preparing for a big dinner party and you've just sat down and you're waiting for all of your guests to arrive.
Well, I think it's going to get crazy in Huntsville, but I know a lot of the store owners are looking forward to it, and I think everyone's looking forward to the impact that it'll have on not just the economy, but just kind of getting Huntsville on the map.